This is a huge update for the Houston Texans as their quarterback room has been solidified. As we're going to give you all the details of the newest contract signed for the Houston Texans, as well as a preview of the Week 1 matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, including a status update for Matthew Stafford for that game. All of that right here on Texans Digest. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Donovan Ricondo. We appreciate you joining us as always. And if you want to stay up to date on all of your Texans content, this is the place for you. As today we're talking a little bit about backup QBs like Davis Mills, who was just extended through the 2026 NFL season. That contract is a new extension that keeps Mills in Houston through the 2026 season. And it is worth $7 million and is fully guaranteed, said sources. Last year's extension was worth $5 million. For those of you that remember, Mills was actually signed to an extension prior to last season. That one was $5 million. This season, they went ahead and signed him to another extension that, of course, again, is through the 2026 season. As ESPN's DJ Bien had this to say about Davis Mills, saying, quote, Mills, a 2021 third-round draft pick out of Stanford, started 26 games for Houston from 2021 to 2022. He went 5-20-1 and threw 5,802 yards with 33 touchdowns and 25 interceptions. Since Stroud's arrival in Houston, Mills has thrown 75 passes for 385 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. And if you're looking at those stats and you're listening to those stats and you're like, what? That is exactly the case. Those stats aren't exactly eye-popping, and I hope to goodness sake that CJ Stroud does not get hurt for this season. That's not a dig on Davis Mills, but at the same time, it is a reality. Hopefully, CJ Stroud is able to maintain his health this season. Would rather not have Davis Mills in the game against teams like the Chiefs, teams like the Ravens, and the time of season where you know injuries kind of happen. And so hopefully health is okay for this team. If not, we still have Davis Mills to provide some backup if necessary. He had himself a pretty solid preseason, didn't do too bad, was able to garner some impressive stats in the time that he was there. And DeMeco Ryans had a lot to say about him and pretty much summed it up in this quote right here, saying his enthusiasm for Davis Mills, saying, if something happens to your starter, if you don't have guys behind him who can go out and perform and keep the team moving, then most of the time your season is just done. I feel really good about Davis. Davis has had the best camp that I've seen since he's been here, end quote. And that is, a good sign. Of course, you want to make sure you have a backup quarterback that is, somewhat reliable. Again, CJ Stroud, I hope to goodness that you are healthy. We understand that Davis Mills isn't exactly a franchise quarterback, but he will be a solid backup, I'm sure. Kudos to him on his new contract that is $7 million fully guaranteed. Congrats to him. As well as for the Week 1 matchup for the Houston Texans. They play the Los Angeles Rams this week, opening up this season. And there is some talk about Matthew Stafford's status, and he is expected to play in the game this Sunday. However, he has been dealing with a back injury all summer. This can limit him for that matchup. He has had this injury since the start of the summer, and he has not practiced very, very much. And so, although he is a experienced NFL player, has been in the league for a very long time, former and a Super Bowl champion back in 2021. But at the same time, he has not practiced very much this offseason, again, dealing with that back injury. So is there to be some sort of effect on his game come Sunday afternoon? That certainly seems to be the case, as a couple of NBC Sports commentators recently commented about the situation and it not being the greatest situation for him to open up play. That Houston Texans defense is, last year, I think they were the 8th best defense in the NFL overall. And the pass rush that this team is able to have with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson does not bode well for a guy like Matthew Stafford, who is dealing with a back injury. Because when you are dealing with this D-line, you are expected to be sacked a whole bunch of times. And that is a very favorable matchup for the Houston Texans in terms of a defensive standpoint. Now, in terms of an offensive standpoint, I can't see uh I can't see this team fully clicking right away, right? This is a new offensive coordinator. This is a whole brand new offensive line. The running back room is a little bit of a question mark right now with the guys that we have back there, including the Joe Mixon injury. And so I don't expect everything to click perfectly for the Houston Texans for this first week. But at the same time, there is a lot to be seen in one, how this offensive line and how this offense operates. We're going to find our first glimpse of what Nick Caley has instilled for this team. CJ Stroud has said it himself. There are some things within this system that he hasn't necessarily done in the NFL. He has done it in college, but taking that from what he learned in college to the NFL has not yet been done. Stuff that he practiced all season, stuff he is getting used to. So we're going to see that play out against the Los Angeles Rams, who also have a very, very solid defense. They are a very good team. They're around the same odds to win the Super Bowl as the Houston Texans. So we're both kind of similar in that aspect. So again, I think this is a great matchup to see how really good the Texans really are. We're going to see what their defense, if it's still an elite defense from last season, and also if the offense can find its way. Again, I don't expect it to gel completely off the bat. No team does. No team figures it out at week one. And if they did, that's typically a sign of a team that peaks at a certain point, an early point in the NFL season. So that is how I interpret things for this week. All I am looking to see is if these guys can coexist with each other on the football field, mainly the offense, right? Defense, we know that they can pretty much do that, as they were very, very solid last season, and there's really no drastic changes with what this defense looks like. Of course, CJ Gardner-Johnson is an addition, but his status is, again, dealing with that leg, I think it was a leg injury, or dealing with that injury. But overall, the offense is what the primary focus is, and I want to see CJ Stroud go out there and have himself a good game to start the season, help set the tone for the entire fan base for the team this year. Again, you're playing against a good team, a very solid team. It's a game where you can measure how good of a team you are, because the Texans are fully expected to receive the AFC division title this year. The competition is not that great this year as of right now, right? There's still a lot of season to play as the season has not started, but you have the Colts, Jaguars, and Titans, who are all kind of still sort of figuring things out in terms of their, not a rebuild, but just teams that are a little bit below average trying to figure themselves out to be one of the better teams. Whereas the Texans are a team looked at as a good team, but can they get over that hump? That is something we've been talking about on this channel for a long, long time. Can the Texans finally get past that kind of bar of making it to the divisional, but never quite getting past that? Can they prove that they are a good team against the Los Angeles Rams, who are definitely going to be a playoff team this year? I see no way around it, and so very big stuff on the way for the Houston Texans. A lot of things to look forward to week one. Comment what you find most interesting to look at in terms of a week one matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. Leave those in the comment section below. And this has been another episode of Texans Digest. We got more videos coming your way about the team. But yes, Davis Mills signs here that new contract extension. He is going to be QB2 in Houston for the next year. Congrats to him in that $70 million contract. And again, if you have not hit that subscribe button below, go ahead and hit it now. We'll see you on the next one. Adios.